Right, so welcome. So, ladies and gentlemen, I have with here women entrepreneurs, all of them from very diverse backgrounds and who've done a lot, achieved a lot, and we're going to hear about them before we begin the panel. So I request you all for an introduction about yourselves. Why don't you start?
Hi, I'm Achal. So I now run a digital marketing company, but I've been a corporate lawyer, I've been a journalist, I've been an editor, been there, done that. So I did my English honors and then I did my law. I got a lot of companies listed on the stock exchanges in between 2014 and 16, Indigo, Alchem, CCD. And from there on, me and my co-founder, who also happens to be an ex-investment banker, we wanted to build a product, and then eventually we understood the gap that was there in digital marketing. Like a lot of people, approximately 10 to 12 companies get anointed as digital marketing companies every day, and yet there was a gap. So we were there to kind of fulfill that, and it's been a good journey. It's been around 3 years that we've been doing this. It's a team of around 65, 70 people that we have now. It's headquartered out of Bombay. There's a small office in Delhi and Bangalore. So that's been, the story so far. Happy to be here.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Divya Gupta, and I'm the co-founder of momsjoy.com. It's a leading maternity and nursing fashion wear brand. My friend and I started Momsjoy when we saw the gap in the market where, women were literally manufacturing babies but still not feeling good about their bodies. So we decided to have our own fashion wear brand that would make them feel empowered, happy, and beautiful. Today we have more than 40,000 customers with celebrities like Sania Mirza, Soha Ali Khan. We're self-funded, profitable, and we're online, offline exporting, and enjoying it.
I'm Gauri Sareen, and till about 6 years ago, I was doing something very, very different from what I'm doing today. And I can't believe it myself. So for almost 18 years after I passed out from XLRI, I was expected to be, of course, in the HR field. I moved out of corporates and I started my own outfit in executive search and talent solutions called Approach International and Approach Talent Solutions. And I ran that for, as I said, a good number of years, I think 18 to 20 years. A time came when I felt that I need to reinvent myself. I need to do things which I'm feeling very passionate about. I need to do something to give back to society and to our nation. And that's when I started 2 platforms. One was Gurgaon Action Plan, which is a completely community-based urban governance platform. And the second one was Bhumija, which I represent right now as I'm talking. Bhumija is today India's largest national platform of organic agripreneurs. And so there's been a real shift from private enterprise to social enterprise. And that's really my story, which I'd like to share. Thank you.
So my name is Gnita, and I'm the founder of the 1947 Partition Archive. So it essentially is a platform that gathers oral histories from people who experienced the partition of India and Pakistan in 1947. So it's a history that was massively disruptive. It changed culture, it changed politics, yet it's hardly documented. It's also known as the world's largest mass refugee crisis, but we don't know as much about it as we should. For example, you take the Holocaust in Europe and you take Hiroshima, Nagasaki, there are massive archives that document those events, and we know so much. The UNHCR was born out of those events. Our understanding of genocides, our understanding of dictatorships, yet we don't know enough about communal violence because we as a global community have not done enough to document. So what we did is we used digital platforms to crowdsource this historical documentation. I guess we'll talk about that more later. And my previous background is I was actually a physicist. So that's what I was doing up until about 7 years ago when I started working on this.
Thank you. So I did come from a pure corporate background.
having done my undergrad in computer engineering and an MBA from Cornell and a CFA, did start out as an investment banker, then moved on to large corporates. I was heading financial services for Accenture. Then part of a bank where I was heading technology and strategy. Wanted to come back to India and do something for making India a pure innovation hub. So with that in mind, we had always, from a technology perspective, been a services hub. And product innovation is a completely different mindset. So I wanted to make in India, for some of India's core problems with the banking and the core economical situation. So started about 5-6 years ago with setting up risk management systems in India for India, but right now they're one of the leading products globally as well. They're doing quite well in other markets, but were created completely in India. And last year, I'm part of BCT, and that's a $290 million top line company, and it's growing leaps and bounds with a very healthy profit, and it's also a way of looking at sustainable product innovation from India as hub, something that I'm very passionate about.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mithi Kalra. I'm a fashion designer by profession, and I am based in Noida. I am a NIFT pass out, an MBA by studies background. I had done my duals majors in finance. Then it was my passion to enter the industry of fashion. I'm into a line of Indo-Western fusions and cocktail dresses for women. Thank you.
Well, this was lovely. So now, ladies and gentlemen, you know what diverse backgrounds we have. My next question to you all is, what does it mean to be a woman entrepreneur, a leader, and how do you steer your teams? And what is it that you all are sort of the direction you're looking in for the next decade?
Maybe we are starting from there. Go ahead. And let's go in. Okay, so maybe I'll take it off. So I think leadership is always an interesting question, especially when asked to an entrepreneur. Because when you have a clearly laid out mission and vision statement, which most large corporates have, it's more about saying where are we going in the next few years based on trends or where you're going to make money. I think it's harder for leadership lessons from an entrepreneur because you're selling the dream. You're selling the vision of where you can get there. And that's a much harder sell because it's based on your trust and the passion with which you portray your vision. Because it's that your dream is what people are buying to come to work for you, come to pay for your products, because most often it's not a finished product you're selling. So I think it's a completely different journey of selling the leadership dream, because as a leader, you got to be passionate. And with, like people say, with huge power comes huge responsibilities. The responsibility is huge because people leave corporate careers to come and work for you, which means that they've invested their time and energy in this dream. And therefore, it's just important for you to kind of go ahead despite the hurdles and kind of make a success for it, because you owe it to the people who have subscribed to your vision. So it's a very different journey. It's a very different challenging journey. And having come from a large corporate setup to the entrepreneurial journey, I think this was my biggest learning. In terms of trends, if you look at it, it's going to be all technology leading the way. Obsolescence is very fast. The millennials are coming into the workforce with very different aspirations. And a whole bunch of technology is going to drive the way that we look and way we buy and the way we choose to live our lives. And people ask often the question, most people ask, how's quantum computing going to change the world? How's artificial, are they going to replace human jobs? They can't, because artificial intelligence is great with specific roles, repeated tasks to be done repeatedly. Whereas if you threw something on the floor and you picked it with your fingers, the momentum is quite different than picking a glass up, which we would intuitively do. So what is the right cost? How is it going to replace? What's going to happen? It's a big journey. I could talk about it, but then I'll just pass the mic over. Thank you.
Hello? Yeah. Quick show of hands here. How many of y'all are existing entrepreneurs? And how many y'all want to become entrepreneurs or, just are starting out here? Okay. Just a couple of them. Okay. So when Jyotsna asked us about leadership in entrepreneurship, at least one of the first things when I started out 3 years back, what I realized was, how do you get people to believe your vision? How do you onboard them to work with you as partners? Because once you're starting out, even in the initial 4 or 5 years, and for a lot of startups, quote unquote, it's even more than 4 or 5 years, that you want them to be as passionate, you want them to run as fast and as quickly as you are running. And that's, of course, difficult to achieve, right? To break the chicken egg, which I'm sure a lot of existing entrepreneurs have already seen, and maybe some of you will agree, that you have to get those couple of people, of course, do certain things to make them believe in your passion, your vision, lead by example most importantly, and then the results have to keep on speaking for themselves. So when it comes to leadership, you will have to build an example for the world to see, and quickly. So if in my case, again, there were people, a lot of them who were in WPP, in Group M. These are agencies in my sector that have been around for the last 200 years. These are international global agencies. I'm starting out a new one. I'm not really disruptive, quote unquote, like any startup, because it's a service agency. I mean, of course, I'll promise quality, I'll promise the rest of the things that everybody promises. Yet, of course, there are certain things that I could call my USP, but at the same time, if you're expecting someone to leave a 200-year-old conglomerate and join your outfit, which is barely like 2 months old or 2 years old, it's always a difficult sell. So there are, of course, certain things in terms of your passion and vision that you have to really translate, communicate through town halls, through a lot of other examples that you set, is how you break that kind of chicken egg. So hats off for a lot of you who are existing entrepreneurs and who could solve this chicken egg story of being a leader and having some people, it could be 2 people, it could be 200 people following your vision. Yeah.
For me, entrepreneurship basically means that you need to have a bigger purpose. I strongly feel that if you want to earn money, then don't be an entrepreneur. Sounds contradicting, but money is not what will drive you every day to work. There has to be a bigger purpose. For example, for me, I am not aiming at selling more clothes to pregnant women every day. My aim is to make them feel happy and confident. When they come back and say how beautiful they felt when they were carrying their baby, that makes all the difference. So there has to be a bigger purpose, and money will definitely follow. Secondly, I think the best part about being an entrepreneur is that it's like a canvas where there are no rules. You can do anything you like, whatever way you like, and it's about being innovative, and you can just paint it your way.
Great. I've had fairly diverse journeys, and I call myself as a case of reinventing your own career or your own work life constantly, which is really the need of the hour today in a very, very fast-moving world. So for 18 years, while I was running Approach International and Approach Talent Solutions, I had a team which I had to really manage a lot. A lot of my focus and energy would go on the team. Now that I have moved into social entrepreneurship, I have a completely different, canvas, so to speak, to paint. And that is about looking at other entrepreneurs, other agripreneurs who are in my platform. How do I enhance their capability? How do I mentor them? How do I make them reach their peaks? How do I make them see what kind of strategies they need to adopt? From a physical leadership space where I knew who I was leading, I'm actually in a virtual leadership space where it's a very large number. We have over 2,000 members in our platform. And I have two such platforms. One is Bhumija, which is an agripreneurship platform, and the other is Living Without Medicine, which is a community-based platform to run, to create health-conscious individuals. So we have two platforms, and we literally, the way we run it is virtually, which means even our teams are actually virtual. We may have never met them at some points of time, but we know how to pick them up. So the world of leadership as any kind of an entrepreneur, woman or otherwise, and I think women probably are playing a very key role here because they're great at community building. I think they use social media, they use the tools of communication very, very effectively. So what I feel has been the critical difference right now, and that's where I would also want to leave some thought behind, is leveraging technology in a virtual world, all right? Where leadership is not about even sometimes knowing your team closely or working with them physically closely. And it can be right across the globe, it can be very niche, it can be local, it can be hyper-local, and it can be, as I said, you know, the other extreme. Now, how do you sense who to pick up, who to connect, who to develop to that next level so that they keep supporting your vision and your passion towards something? So what are we doing? We are actually creating an entire ecosystem of organic agripreneurship across India and slowly the globe, all right? And at the same time, we are creating health-conscious communities, which are linking. These two things are linked with each other. Now, how do we work? I'm sitting in Gurgaon, and I have to work with thousands of people right across the globe in a shared vision. And that, to me, is really the challenge and the opportunity which technology brings.
Thank you. Yeah, so I guess in my case, there's a number of different challenges that I'd like to talk about. So for me, one of the interesting things was also doing this work in South Asia. As you can tell from my accent, I was raised in the US, which is where this project was born. It was born in California, where you have a pan-South Asian community. So you don't have just Indians, you have people from India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, everybody mingling together. And you can easily talk about these things because there's no political barriers. And so this project started out without as many barriers in a space where it was possible. And then obviously it had to migrate to South Asia, to here, because this is where most of the people who are impacted live. And so for me as a leader, trying to work those different spaces to learn this culture and see what kind of style people respond to here. People respond to different things in different cultures. So I think part of leadership is being a little bit of a chameleon, because if you want to grow the base of people that you're working with, if you want to spread the idea, you have to be able to kind of learn the people that you're talking to and understand what resonates with them and what their style is so that you can, to the best of your ability, because obviously you're one human, you're limited, to the best of your ability, be able to convey it to them in their language. By that I mean their body language, their style of speaking, and all of that. So that's just one nuance that I thought I'd talk about.
Thank you. Hello. Yeah. So for me, entrepreneurship means something which is, about me as a leader, and about how I can, manage my whole space, my team, my clients, because I'm in a business where I interact with a lot of customers on a daily basis. So for me as a leader, as an entrepreneur, it is really important to be able to understand what my client needs. How am I going to be able to, help them look a certain way on their day? How can I make it better for them? I need to have a profound knowledge of how I'm going to take things further according to their vision of how they want to dress for that particular day. So, and on the contrary, I'm an entrepreneur. I have a whole team. I have a back end to manage. I have a whole team where, I have to see, I have to manage people on the back end. We have very different sections. So we have to manage the embroidery section separately and the staff again separately. Plus we have to, on the other hand, see how we are going to, how we are going to actually manage all of it together in one scoop. So for me, entrepreneurship basically, going with, as Divya said, it's a very different canvas. How can I paint it every day with a different stroke is upon me. Yeah, thank you.
So let's talk a little bit about some trends now. What are the key trends that entrepreneurs should, keep in mind, and what we can look at for the next decade? You can start. Since you started.
The trendsetter. So I think, sorry. No, I think it's okay. The voice is audible even otherwise. So I think in terms of trends, it means different things. People talk about trends in terms of, for instance, we just spoke about sustainability. What does it mean to people? It's a trend to talk about sustainability, but the context in which sustainability means is completely changing. So I'm just picking on a few jargons and demystifying it and talking about what does it mean. To most people, sustainability means either it's waste management or something giving back to society. But that's not the context in which sustainability is looked at today. It is more in the context of, let's say, that even if I look at it from a philanthropical lens, it's more about how do I get the first year funding going, partial funding for year 2, and then they move on to kind of keep that engagement going so that, going back to the often said thing, you can't feed somebody fish every day. You need to teach them fishing. So sustainability in a corporate sense as well is more about if you're not there that particular day, how is that legacy going to transform? Is that still going to be a corporate that can go on to invent more and more new things? So for a corporate, it could mean something as simple as an innovation culture. So it means different things even to a corporate depending on the lens that you're wearing, right? And so from a trend perspective, there's a lot that's happening from an HR perspective. So millennials are coming in, and then with them, there are different expectations. Most of them are not enticed by money, but it's the passion of what you're working. And it's more about they're not going to take on your big duty loans. So the way you service the millennials is going to be different. It's more living for now rather than, saving for the earlier and the future generation. So I think there's a lot of trends that happens depending on what lens you apply, even for one issue. Then you map it all with the trend in terms of technology and other things that are going to make commoditized work no longer interesting, because that's going to be taken over by machines. And then you're going to have the value-added work that will be the only lens. So creativity is going to take a main stage as we go along, because some of the repeated tasks are going to just go away and replaced by, whether you call it computing machines or you call it AI, it's just the lens in which you apply. And so more and more jobs in terms of innovation are going to come to those economies which were traditionally known as service economies. So there's a lot of macro trends happening out there, and there is a lot more importance that you would invest in, let's say from an investor perspective. You invest based on trust. You invest based on management strength. Not just the product, but it's more about where can this go. So if I did invest in it, am I building it for the future? So I could keep talking about trends, but I'll pause because I started the day. I want to make sure others get the chance to. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think Gunita and Jaya here mentioned about millennials, when it comes to leadership. I'll get on to trends very quickly. So of course, when it comes to leadership, I agree with them that, when it comes to millennials, and a lot of people, existing entrepreneurs will again agree there's a different, pros and cons to them. It's a different beast to handle. You handle them well, you'll be rewarded. If not, it's, so your leadership that way gets a little transformed across sectors, Now, coming to trends, so again, trends is something when we talk about technology or 2020 and what lies ahead, there are two things that I think we have to kind of focus on, and it gets bifurcated for me. In the session before, I don't know if a few of you attended, I heard this woman speak about an Amazon for rural India, right? And on the other hand, we are talking about artificial intelligence, natural language processing, machine learning, virtual reality. So for me, in a country like India, at least when you talk about technology trends, it's of course has to be looked at, you know, in two different segments and probably more. So it's like a cohort. So when you're talking technology for a certain sector, these are the buzzwords, but I strongly believe that as far as me or my entrepreneurship, and I'm sure a lot of others who are doing anything impactful in the social domain, you're looking at more technology from a lens of more upgrading the side that's yet not probably, they don't even know how to use the internet right now, forget AI and ML and VR. So, trends that ways gets bifurcated, at least for me, when it comes to what lies ahead. And I think a lot of it has to be blamed on Google. So I'll tell you why. Of course, it's what saves our lives every day. But most of the sessions or most of the people who talk about technology trends, a lot of them will mostly say a very parroted narrative. It's very copy-paste, whatever 5 trends for 2020, 10 buzzwords for 2020, but I think we need to contextualize it a lot more. So for example, she contextualized it based on her own learning, and I'm sure all of us will contextualize. So for every sector, the trends are different. For every cohort, for every sec in India, the trends are going to be different when it comes to technology. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to really contextualize now. So one context I used to work on is talent trends, what is really happening in the talent world. But right now I'm not going to talk about the talent. I can talk about talent, but in a completely different, not in the corporate world, but in the agriculture world. So one of the key trends that I see happening across the globe, really speaking, is regenerative agriculture. I think there is climate change is absolutely real. The fact is that we need to relook at the way we have been doing mass agriculture, industrial agriculture, chemical-based agriculture needs to completely change. And I think there's a growing movement and a really huge trend against that. So I see this being really the buzz for the next, I think it was Bernie Sanders who mentioned this also about a couple of days ago, that organic is going to be the buzz for the next decade for sure, if not more. And along with that, the trend of what our platform is called living without medicine. I really see this as a trend. Number one, clearly people moving more towards from modern medicine, moving back to traditional ancient medicine and therapy. Moving from taking medication to going back to plant-based diets, keto diets, nutrition, nutrient-based foods. So I see this going to be a very big trend in the next 10 years. And honestly, the reason I'm working in this area is because, one, there is a problem which needs to be solved in agriculture. There is a problem which needs to be solved in the health area. Critical problem to be solved in the health area. Lifestyle diseases is probably one of the biggest problems of the world today. I don't think it has hit home yet. But the fact is that cancer is today, and I've asked this question to many audiences earlier, and normally the answer is the same. How many of you, for example, have had cancer in your extended family? And I'd be surprised if any of the hands don't go up. A large number of you. So I've had in my own family, and I will not even call it extended family, pretty close family, I've had 5 deaths in the last 6 years through cancer. And anywhere, not just, I just came back from South America, which is Brazil and Peru, and I would ask the same question there. And I would get the same answers, that cancer has become part and parcel of the, of society. And apart from that, of course, diabetes, and now, of course, the most popular one is, which one? Come on. What is the most popular running today? Coronavirus, absolutely, yeah. So I think I'm going to first put the soft trend. The soft trend is going to definitely be focused on foods and health. Where does technology come in? For both these trends to really, what should I say, scale up across the globe, because health foods are still considered as a very small, almost like an elite segment, so to speak. I think from here, when it starts becoming into an affordable segment, a huge technology shift needs to happen in the whole area of agriculture. What is already happening in agriculture? Just a few trends which I wanted to share with you. AgTech. What is agri-technology? Agri-technology can be at practically every part of the value chain. It is at the input level, it is at the processing level, it is at the supply chain level, and it is at the CRM or the customer level. So AgTech is really becoming the buzz today. I think the kind of new technologies which are coming in the agriculture area has made agriculture really fashionable. I mean, there was a time when agriculture used to be considered, nahi, kisi ko farming nahi karna hai. On my platform of 2,000, I can tell you safely that about 1,000 of them are IT and people from the IT sector, educated people. Some of them could be IITians who are going back, who are leaving their jobs, they're leaving their businesses and going to agriculture. And very happily living in villages and or wanting to transition into villages and work there full time. So this is definitely going to be a big thing. Blockchain and AI are going to play a very important role. Precision agriculture already beginning to play an important role. I think it needs to really go forward. But fundamentally what I'm saying is that if I take technology to the end of the customer tastes are going to continue to change. They'll need variety. There'll be a lot of pressure for them to give access to health food. And here technology will have to play the most important role. And agripreneurs will have to play the most important role in being able to connect the farmer, what he grows, with the consumer, what he consumes. Thank you.
I guess I can build on that. So what you're saying is that the world is becoming more holistic as a whole. And one area that I can touch upon is something that somebody in the last panel touched upon, is that we are moving towards a greater awareness about how unegalitarian we are, but how we aspire to be more egalitarian. And I think not only is there a trend towards more gender equity, and we do see a pushback. We see a pushback in politics. We see a pushback in many areas that's very visible right now. And I think it's a pushback towards this general trend of trying to close the gender gap, trying to close the economic gap. And I think that will be pan-industry, and it will require all of us, even entrepreneurs, to kind of self-reflect and see what our own biases are, because our biases show up in our companies and how our companies are managed. And so I think it is going to require all of us, companies, governments, to do that self-reflection. That's what I have to say about that.
So for me as trends, when we talk about trends, it's very important being in the fashion business today to be able to understand how we are going to be catering to our client needs. What are the clients going to be asking us for? As entrepreneurs, it is very important for us to understand how are we going to keep our employees happy, how are we going to keep the organizations fit. Earlier, as entrepreneurs, we could do, one rule could fit all the employees. But when it comes today, we as, leaders now need to understand that our employees have their own personal space beyond our working hours as well. So keeping the organization happy, keeping your employees happy is also going to play a very important role in nourishing your businesses coming ahead. Because if you don't have an equipped team to work for you, how will you achieve your targets, your dreams? So it's going to be a very important aspect of how we nourish our teams, our employees, how we make them fit fit for us to, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I'll quickly touch on this. I feel the current trend is that you start a business, work for a few months, go out, look for funding, and you think it's done. Media is also writing so much about companies getting funding. You know, if I get like 5 CR, everyone is going to write about me. But if I'm making 5 CR in profit, nobody's going to know that also. So the trend really has to shift from funding as a goal to funding as a means that you may need to reach your goal. Secondly, I also feel that whenever we meet somebody, one question that everyone will ask you is, what next? And there's this unsaid pressure of growth, which generally people evaluate basis on how many employees you have, how big is your team, how many offices, how many branches. So whenever you have money, you start making money, and then you have uncontrolled expenses. So growth should not be a pressure, and it should be very ROI based. And I think the future trend will be social media, where engagement with customers will be very, very critical. Because a lot of companies are now, there's so many startups, everybody is going to be on social media, so it's going to get expensive, and engagement will be the key. Technology will be the differentiating factor, and focus has to shift from funding to profitability.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we're out of time, but if you all have any questions, maybe we can take 1 or 2 questions. All right. So I think that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank
This
you
is very
too.
interesting.
Absolute insightful. Please.